It's something that'll change the world and human life as we know it.
He knows. He's seen the light.
When Monty talks, it's painful.
Monty, you have been so instrumental in kind of pointing me in the right direction.
It was about looking at your character defects in spirituality.
It's the integration of clinical practices with the 12 steps.
It's an absolute pleasure. He certainly knows a lot of people. He's got a lot of energy, and sometimes when you don't have so much energy, he picks you up and carries you.
Having the Monty'man there certainly helps.
This is one of the places that is about the business of the solution.
The views expressed on this special broadcast of the K-12 radio show do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting or its affiliates. KHLT is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
Now here's that guy who's getting less popular minute by minute, your host, the Monty'man.
Well, greetings one and all. Welcome aboard, all you scallywaggles and scallywagettes and scallywags. It is good to have you aboard the Good Ship Recovery here at Take12Radio.com on your internet dial. Hey, listen, before I forget, I want to make sure that you know what's coming up on Saturday, September 5th. It is the Northwest Recovery Project in their second year. It's an amazing gathering of presenters and speakers and people in recovery. And the recovery community, from faith-based to secular, comes together. They leave all the differences at the door, and they really put on an amazing event. This year, it is going to be at the Clark Community College in Vancouver, Washington. And please stop by the Take 12 radio booth. The Monty'man will be there to shake your hand and say hello and maybe share a little bit of your experience, strength, and hope on the air. You can visit their website at recoverynw.com. I'll follow the links here at Take 12 Radio. So please don't miss out on that. If you think your recovery community is kind of dead and dry, go to some of these things because it'll prove otherwise. It's an amazing thing, the Hands Across the Bridge ceremony from Vancouver to Portland, on the I-5 bridge there, to watch people come together from all different backgrounds. In unity, saying, the lie is dead, we do and can recover. It's an amazing thing to see. What's also amazing is to think of all those people under the influence of something at the same time. That just blow your mind, but here they are, clean and sober and doing the deal. So please join us for that on Saturday, September 5th. All right. My guest today is named Paul Holway, and Paul came from a life of sin and darkness, like most of us have. I mean, it hasn't been a pretty deal. Things have not always been going as well as they are today for most of us. Well, loneliness and hatred and suicidal tendencies and a lot of self-pity, right? Right, Paul?
Yes.
And drug and alcohol abuse was a big part of my guest's life. But Jesus Christ saved him. And now it's time to share his story of redemption. And listen, I know that there are many of you who do not share the same faith as this radio station, but you keep listening. There's got to be a reason for that. So hang on with us. Don't give up on us. You may hear something that you've been needing to hear for a very long time. Well, listen, Paul started out his life as a normal child would, and he grew up to about 10 years of age. Paul became a very hateful person towards people and himself. He began to get in trouble at school and at home, like many of us have. When Paul was 12 years old, he took an innocent life. He was put into juvenile facilities for 5 years. Paul got involved in drugs and drinking. His life became more and more difficult to manage. But Jesus came into his life at the age of 21. Paul's been on the wild ride ever since. Jesus has completely turned Paul's life around. And so I welcome you, Paul, to the show to share with us your experience, strength, and hope, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. What happened? What was going on, man?
Well, just as a child, I was a middle child. I had a younger sister and an older brother. Both my parents are Christian, so I grew up in a Christian home.
Right.
And, just through the years growing up, I became to have a jealousy towards my little sister because with her being a baby, she could get away with stuff, and I couldn't anymore.
How old was she when you started having these feelings?
Let's see, I was probably between 9 to 10. I think closer to 10. So she was 4 years younger, so she was about 6.
Okay, so 6 years of age,
Mm-hmm.
10 years of age, and you're just fuming.
Yeah, and
right?
it happened gradual. It wasn't something that just came on me one day.
Right.
And then even with my older brother, he's 2 years older than me. I had a jealousy, because he was older and he could do more stuff of what he wanted, where I was still too young and I didn't understand that at the time.
Oh, the middle child.
Yeah. And you start feeling left out of things.
Yeah.
And even though I look back now, and I know my parents loved all three of us, tremendously, and they loved us the same. I know that, but back then I didn't see that. I couldn't.
What gave you the idea that you weren't loved as much as the other two? Was there a specific thing that happened, or was it just kind of a gut feeling that you kind of stirred up in your own head?
Yeah, I think it was something I stirred up in my own head.
Yeah.
Because just gradually, like, it didn't happen just all of a sudden. It wasn't a certain event that took place.
Right.
And so just over the years, and then with my mom, she was the disciplinarian, and so when she would spank us, sometimes it'd get out of hand and might leave bruises on the back of my legs, or she might miss and hit my lower back.
Mm-hmm.
And so being at that age, 10 or so,
right?
I think there was something broken inside of me where I over-exaggerated things. And so something that I look back now as being just a regular punishment, I thought I was beat. I thought that she had beat me. That's the way I took it.
Oh, okay.
And so that created a fear in me of my mom.
Right. Wow. To be afraid of your mom at 10 years of age.
Yeah.
So, okay, what would push you to the point of, and let's talk about what happened. Like, what pushed you to the point to take somebody's life?
It's just everything from throughout all the years.
Just all build it up.
Everything I kept stuffing. I had no one to talk to.
Yeah.
Even my friends, I just didn't feel like I could talk to them even about what was going on. And I didn't know how. I mean, how do you, at that age, how do you communicate what you're feeling inside?
Because you really don't even know yourself, right? I mean, your brain isn't even developed yet completely.
Not at all.
So there's people listening right now that are going, yeah, but I went through all that, and I didn't take somebody's life. I mean,
definitely.
We hear stories like that all the time.
Yeah.
People just want to throw some slings and arrows because they haven't walked in our shoes. But you're right. Something had to be broken.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the way I dealt with that too was and it always came out in anger. I would break my belongings, or my mom, I'd be mad at her one day, and so she'd be gone or something, so I'd grab a bunch of her tapes and break those, or to try to get back to her subtly. Animals, that was a big deal for me, was to hurt animals, and a lot of times I'd end up killing them because it made me feel like I was in control, because the rest of my life I didn't feel like I was in control of anything. And even at school, I got picked on and stuff. So I was real small, and I was kind of a little heavy set. I wasn't fat, but I felt like I was. And so I got bullied at school. My teachers, I was always getting in trouble there.
Yeah.
And so just all of that just piled up, and.
So what do they call it? A whiteout or whatever it is? An anger out or whatever. Like when you would hurt an animal, you just go into.
Oh, you just kind of black out.
You black out. Because if you really saw what was going on in the eyes of that animal, you probably wouldn't continue.
Oh,
so
no.
You would have to shut down, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's times too where, because even to this day, I love animals, and even when I was a little kid, I loved animals. And that's the funny thing. 'Cause there's times where I remember hurting an animal, and then I'd be upset with myself because I did it.
Yeah.
And then instead of stopping, I would almost do it worse. It's almost like I can't explain.
Form of medicating.
In a sense, yeah.
Yeah.
I hated what I was doing, but I kept doing it.
Like the alcoholic who says, man, I drank again, so what the heck?
Yeah.
I'll just drink some more.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, okay, tell us what happened, man.
Well, that day, I'd gotten in trouble at school, and so, of course, the principal called my mom.
Right.
And, so I knew I was going to be in, big trouble. And so on the bus ride home, I'm messing around with some kids and stuff and getting in trouble on the bus. And so the bus driver, he had enough. And this is something I had done fairly regularly. Was getting in trouble.
So he was fed up.
Yeah. So he was done. And so he turned the bus around and actually went to where they called it the bus barn. That's where they parked the buses for the night. And his boss was actually there. And so his boss, they pulled me off the bus and, talked to me and, gave me a letter and, and told me that my parents had to sign it and I had to sign it or I wouldn't be allowed to ride the bus anymore. And we lived 7 miles out of town. And so I had to ride a bus.
Yeah.
So, I just, from being in trouble at school and then this now, I just knew I was going to be dead. She was going to just, in my mind, she was going to beat me.
Right.
And I just knew it, And so, the rest of the bus ride home, probably, 20-minute ride home, I'm just sitting there and it's just stewing and just, I'm scared and I wanted to run away, but it's like, where would I go? And I'm 12 by this time.
Yeah.
And, and I don't know how that thought came to my head, but it came to shoot my little sister.
To shoot her?
To shoot her.
Yeah, you had a gun in the home?
Yes. Yeah, my dad did. Mm-hmm.
Did you just go right to the cabinet where the gun was and just did the deed?
Yeah. Once I decided to do it, it was almost like this calmness came over me. All my feelings just went away. I was numb, and still to this day, I don't want to say I was possessed, but I believe there was a heavy presence over me.
Definitely oppressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I did, the way I thought about it was, if I did this, that my mom, that she would be afraid of me now, instead of me being afraid of her.
Oh.
And in my mind, I figured there wouldn't be any more punishments.
So it wasn't really about your little sister.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
No. And it just happened. That me and her were going to be home alone that day until my mom got home from work, or my dad.
Yeah.
And so it's so the whole walk home from the bus stop, I felt like a robot, like I felt like I was inside looking out through my eyes, but something else was controlling my body. I had no. I don't know. I can't really describe it other than that.
Sure.
And so it's just real methodically. I just went back to where my dad kept his guns, and he actually had a little metal toolbox that he kept his bullets locked in, and it had a padlock. But before that, I had learned how to. The hinges on the back, you just get a hanger and you push out the hinges.
Oh, okay.
And you're in.
Right. Yeah.
And so I loaded his gun, and my sister, her name was Bethany. She was in her room playing with her dolls or something, and so I walk in there, and she kind of just saw me out of the corner of her eye. And, she said, "What are you doing?" And she didn't even notice the gun, and so I didn't even say anything, and I pointed it at her and I shot her.
What was going through your heart and your head immediately afterwards?
Immediately afterwards, I almost felt like I just snapped out of it and became aware again.
Yeah.
And all I remember is seeing her laying on the ground. And I couldn't even see the blood or anything, but I just remember her laying on the ground. And immediately I just the strong smell of the gunpowder, which I still remember that today.
I bet.
And my ears ringing just from the gun going off.
Yeah.
And so I went back to my parents' bedroom and put the gun on the bed, and then it's like I just went crazy. I just started running all over the house, just screaming and crying, and then it's like it seemed like a nightmare. And so I'd go back to her room, and I'd see her laying there, and then reality again, and then I'd just take off running again, just scared, and I didn't have a clue what to do, and finally I thought to call my mom, and that was the only thing I could think to do, and so I called her, and so long story short, she called the ambulance, and they all the police, everybody showed up, and everything, and she had died there on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they tried to revive her on the way to the hospital, but she was dead.
Yeah. So you got to wonder what's going through mom and dad's head, right?
Yeah.
Right. and they got to wonder what's going through your head.
Oh, for sure.
And you will, because you're not them and they're not you.
Mm-hmm.
Not one of you will actually understand it completely.
Oh no!
Right. But something happened in your life that actually where reconciliation took place. But before that happened, you had to pay the piper.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So we're gonna take a break, and we come back. Let's talk about that piper and the payment you paid.
Okay.
For it. So folks, don't go away. More with my guest, Paul Holway. By the way, you can visit his website at paulholwayministries.com, and it's just like it sounds, PaulHolway ministries.com. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Free by the Sea is a drug and alcohol recovery center located in beautiful Ocean Park, Washington. This facility is amazingly gorgeous, but what's even more impressive is the integrity of the staff and the treatment provided for those wishing to recover from drug and alcohol addiction. The folks at Free by the Sea have a passion for presenting the solution to addiction for you and your loved one. To speak with an admission specialist, call toll-free 800-272-9199. That's 800-272-9199.
Hey, look! Running around in the meetings, gobbling up gallons of bad coffee, flapping his gums wherever he can bring a smile to a hurting face. It's Slogan Man! We know cute little platitudes and sayings on the wall in 12-step meeting won't keep you sober, but they sure will make you think, consider, and even laugh your way through an otherwise crappy day. Can't wait to get to your home group to hear those slogans over and over and over and over again? No need to. Pick up a copy of the 12-Step Gazette and join the adventures of Slogan Man. Visit www.12stepgazette.com and subscribe today. Slogans and platitudes are no substitute for working the steps, but Slogan Man is very cool.
This is Jerry Vandiver, and you're listening to Take12Radio.com. Recovery, talk, and positive music.
Thank you, Jerry, and welcome back, folks. Paul Holway is my guest. Paul Holway Ministries. PaulHolwayMinistries.com is the website. Please make a note of that. You can follow the link here on Friday's page as well. Just click on it, and it'll take you there. And on there, he's got a blog. He's got his ministry, some of what he does. He's a musician in his own right. And we're talking to him today about really a horrific event that occurred in his life. Now, I know what some of you were thinking. You know, we're getting ready to talk about the price that Paul paid for his actions. And we do know that we need to be responsible for our actions. And there are consequences to our actions. And some of you are going to be saying, this isn't enough. And Paul, you've heard it all.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You've probably come under some vicious attack, as well as probably some very understanding people.
Yes, definitely.
And it's got to be, you know, guys, what a difficult thing to walk through. And I'm going to share with the listeners before we close the show why I can sit across from Paul and not have one judgmental bone in my body. And so you may want to consider that, because we all have something. We have either been there, we are there, or we could be there. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. So, okay, so the police come, the ambulance comes, you know, at some point, the official declaration that she has passed arrives.
Yes.
What happens? What happens to you?
Well, after that, you know, we went to a hotel, and then, you know, and then the police eventually showed up, and they took me to county jail to spend the night. And you know, one thing I want to talk about real quick is just the power of God with forgiveness. Is my parents, even though I took their daughter away from them, they forgave me immediately. And
wow.
You know, that night in county jail, my dad, he slept on the floor in the jail cell with me that night, just so I wouldn't be alone.
Man.
And you know, and being in their shoes, you know, I can honestly say I don't know that I could do that.
Right.
And you know, all I can credit is God. I mean, there's no other explanation.
Is your dad alive today?
Yes.
What a great dad.
Yeah. Yes.
What a testimony to our Heavenly Father.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, my mom too. I mean, they've both just flipped the world for me. But yeah, so after, the next morning, we had a court hearing, and so they sent me to the mental state hospital for a 72-hour evaluation. They had the psychologist talk to me and stuff, and so they decided to keep me there and just try to get some mental health, try to figure out what happened and why I did this. And probably about 3 or 4 months after being there, I went for my sentencing. And so I was sentenced to 5 years, which at the time was considered juvenile life because that was the longest a juvenile could be sentenced.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And
they decided not to try you as an adult.
Yeah, they couldn't. At that time, they couldn't. That was back in 1988.
1988.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they couldn't. So I served 5 years. And the whole time, in jail, growing up, all the youth detention centers, I got sent, probably to 5 or 6 different ones across the state. And I would serve a certain amount of time in each one.
Right. They like to do that.
Yeah.
They like to bounce you around.
Yeah. But being in there, even though, I hated God. I hated who he stood for. In my eyes, growing up, he took my dad away. Even though my dad was always, he'd always been there.
But that was your perception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He took time away from our family. In my mind, God did by taking my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so so I was angry with God. I hated him. There was times where I'd scream at the top of my voice and cuss him out. And curse him. But one thing that with God is, even though we turn our backs on him, he still loves us regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And even at that state hospital. There was a woman from a local church that came in to see me, and I didn't know who she was. I've never met her before.
Right.
And so she would pray with me, and she brought me a Bible. She brought me this bookmark that's got Bible verses like that for references. Like if I was angry, there's a Bible verse to reference to. If I was sad or hurting, it referenced me to different Bible verses. And I actually have that today still.
Wow.
And so each place that I went, there was always somebody there that would talk to me about God. And even though I didn't want anything to do with him, but I listened because they were somebody from the outside coming in. And so to me, it was almost like freedom in a sense coming to me.
Sure.
Just dealing with growing up, from you go in when you're 12 years old, and majority of the kids are between 15 to 17 years old. And so just learning how to keep below the radar, I guess.
Yeah.
You blend in because you cause trouble. You can get a fight quick.
Right.
And I was so little, I wouldn't have stood a chance.
Mm-hmm.
So dealing with that, dealing with all the counselors, we had so many hours of counseling. We had group sessions with all the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I had counseling individually with my counselor. We'd had family counseling.
Right.
And so eventually, I just didn't want to talk about it. I couldn't deal with what I did. I didn't want to accept it. I couldn't accept it. And so I just started telling the guy, whatever he wanted to hear, just to get him to shut up. I didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
One of the places I'd been sent to was up around the Denver area, and so up there was, a lot of gang members and stuff that were locked up. And that's something I had never been around because the little town I grew up in, there wasn't
culture shock.
Oh, big time.
Wow. Yeah.
And so, it's not only was there people, being hard on me because of what I was in there for, but they were hard on me because I was white. I was, I wasn't colored or I wasn't Hispanic. And so all of a sudden the racial thing,
was
comes
a big
in.
deal. And it was a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they get really indignant about that one.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Ooh, wow. So what happened? What happened while you were incarcerated? Something happened spiritually, right? You started reading these scripture verses, and so did that help?
It did a little bit. It didn't really hit home until after I had actually gotten released.
Oh, okay.
But during each place I was at, it's like God was using these people to come in, and they were planting a seed in me. And so the more that time went on, and I was maturing, so I was understanding stuff, better.
Right.
Also, so I was starting to get a curiosity about God. Like maybe he's not, who I thought he was. And the very last place I was at, the Christian Motorcyclists Association would come in once a month, CMA.
Right.
And they would do Bible studies. And to me, that's what I wanted to be, was a biker when I got out. And I wanted to hang out in bars, get into fights, and, have wild sex. I mean, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And, that was my fantasy of what I wanted to be. Because I was still just filled with anger and hate. And but, so these Christian bikers come in, and the first time I saw them, I'm looking at them, I was like, you guys aren't Christians. I mean, they had long hair, big old beards, tattoos all over, and they wore, leather, jackets, all that stuff.
They didn't fit into the Christian box, did they?
Oh, not at all.
Yeah.
And, and so God really used those people to kind of open my eyes, just because of that. And they, and actually, I'm writing, or I've got a book right now, it's in editing, but, I talk about this in there where, these people, these bikers, they accepted me for who I was, they didn't judge me for what I had done, for even being locked up at all.
Mm-hmm.
Not once did they ever ask me why I was there. They just loved on me. And I mean, everybody else that was in the group too. And so it's like,
Were you suspicious of that at first?
I was shocked.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's not what I was used to.
Right.
And especially the way they looked. I mean, how could
they care about me, man?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, each month when they came in, you start kind of getting attached to them and, and becoming friends with them.
Right. Wow. And so you were, when they started coming to visit, how old were you?
I was probably about 16, I guess, because I got released the following year.
Yep, released
the following 17.
Year. Okay. All right. Okay, we're going to take our last break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what did happen. I mean, something miraculous took place.
Yes.
Obviously in your life, because you're not that guy.
Nope.
Right? You're not that guy. All right. Don't go away, my friends. I don't know what you're thinking right now, so I want to invite you to email us here at take12radio@comcast.net. Share your thoughts, and I'll get back to you. I don't care what you think of this story. I want to hear from you. Because this story needs to be told. Because this is major redemption stuff.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. This isn't, I robbed the Kmart and, went and made amends and they didn't accept it and I had to go to jail for 6 months. Although that's not a pretty thing either. I don't want to minimize anybody that's experienced that. But holy moly, man. I'm just, I'm so proud of you, by the way. And this is just a testimony to what God can do in a person's life. All right, don't go away. We'll be right back. More with Paul Holway when we come back.
As men and women who have recovered from utterly hopeless states of addiction ourselves, we know all too well what it's like to battle addiction daily. We are Origins Recovery Centers. Here at Origins, we have taken that which we have learned along the way, excised anything unhelpful and unnecessary, infused it with the latest medical research and innovative therapeutic methods, and created what we know to be the absolute gold standard in substance abuse treatment. And Origins provides the most preeminent aftercare and relapse prevention program available in the United States. For a free confidential clinical assessment, call toll-free 888-843-8935. That's 888-843-8935. Origins, delivering real solutions for real families.
Men, women, and their families experience tremendous pain and suffering due to the struggles they face from substance abuse and its co-occurring mental health challenges. They need to find a safe place for peace and healing. Therapia Addiction Healing Center was born out of a deep desire to provide that safe and powerful healing environment. Therapia exists to help people recover from addictions by developing and maintaining healthy, meaningful relationships with God, self, and others. To speak with an addiction specialist, call 1-855-652-4325. That's 1-855-652-4325. Or visit our website at www.therapia.net. Therapia Addiction Healing Center, restoring lives one step at a time.
Hey guys, this is Richie Supa, and you are listening to Take12Radio.com, recovery talk and positive music.
All right, welcome back. Thank you, Richie. Paul Holway is my guest. PaulHolwayMinistries.com is the website. Okay, so you are at a place where you're getting ready to be released.
Yes.
And, any of us that have been incarcerated knows the process. You can't get out of there fast enough.
Yeah.
So you get out.
Mm-hmm.
What is the response to the community or from the community when you get out?
My hometown, I ended up having to go back to my hometown,
right.
And I had to finish my senior year of high school. And people, mostly the high school kids, I almost felt like I was, Moses, parting the seas.
Really?
You walk
Wow.
down the hallway and,
yeah.
Kids, they don't want to look at you. They kind of avoid you. And
they don't know what
they
to
walk
do,
around.
Right? Yeah.
It's a small town. Everybody knows everybody.
Wow.
And so I'd probably say the first couple of weeks was really hard. One thing, my parents' house was still the same house that I had shot Bethany in.
Ooh.
And so going home, that was very, very difficult, to even live in the same house again. And then another thing too is my relationship with my parents was so different, and I loved them. I knew they loved me. That was very, very obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But my relationship as far as a son with parents, it almost seemed like they were really good friends instead of parents, just because growing up from 12 to 17, I was really raised by the system, by staff members and other older kids.
So some of those bonds that would normally take place just weren't there.
Yeah. And so that was hard, being back at home, that whole situation. But as far as school, I quickly found a group, and some of the kids were some of the kids I had grown up with, when I was younger, and they were already partying, doing drugs, drinking, all that stuff, and they were the ones that accepted me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's right where I went.
That's where you went.
I started partying and getting high and all that stuff.
Why not?
Yeah.
It's like Dr. Phil always says, I don't ask why, I ask why not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah, there's acceptance there.
Yeah, you bet.
And so just, probably a couple of years, partying and all that. I had, it was after high school, I was working at a hotel, and I was going to all the different rooms, taking out the old phone book and putting the New Year's phone book in. And I opened up, one drawer, and I see a little handgun sitting there. And
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
The guest was still staying.
Oh, they were still saying, and so
yeah,
okay.
and they were gone from the room, but their stuff was still in there.
Yeah.
And in this little town, it was very common that people would go out and go target shooting. And so a lot of the cowboys there, they always had a rifle in the back window of their pickup.
Yeah.
So it wasn't uncommon at all. And so in my mind, I was thinking, I've never shot one of these before. That would be really cool. And so I took it, and not even thinking about the trouble I could get into. And another thing, too, is in Colorado, you had to be 21 to be in possession of a handgun, and I wasn't 21. I think I was 18 or 19. And so I took it, and long story short, the police, they searched the house and everything. And I actually ended up going out to the lake and threw it in the middle of the lake. But I ended up turning myself in because I was just tired of them, hounding me and all that.
Right.
And so I ended up being faced with a felony. It was Class 5 felony, so it was
Was this like a probation violation too? Because
no, because
okay.
I was a child when I did that. And
okay.
So technically, they shouldn't have attached what I did to my sister to this, but they did.
They did. Yeah.
They charged me with possession of a weapon by a previous offender.
Ah.
And so
because you're not supposed to be having a weapon anyway.
No.
Even if you could have one, you weren't of the age yet where you were supposed to, right?
No.
Right.
Yeah. So the district attorney, he wanted to send me to prison, and because there's previous to that, there were so many times where I went to court for breaking windows or theft or
they'd had it with you.
He had enough, and but my lawyer, he got me 3 years probation, and I think I served like a week in jail for that, and that's right there, I give glory to God for that, because I could have been sitting in prison, but God used that. On the same token, that was my reality check. That was my last chance, and I really see that as God saying, Paul, this is, you're done. You mess up again, you're out of here.
Was this something in your gut, or did you have a burning bush experience? Or
no, it's just in my gut. I just, I didn't recognize it as being God.
Yeah.
But I just knew, something had to change. And so, my wife, I actually had met her when I was 12, and she was in the state hospital too. And I actually met her at a dance because she was in a different cottage than I was. And so we were friends and stuff. And she lived in Pueblo, Colorado, and I was in Gunnison, Colorado, and so she agreed to let me move in with her until I got my own place. And I just knew I had to leave town. I could not stay around my old friends. I needed to get sober. I couldn't.
Right.
I had to get away from all that. So I physically left town, and so I got straight. I still smoked weed a little bit and drank, but like the speed and stuff I was taking, I didn't take any of that anymore. And then one of my jobs, I met a woman. And I found out that her and her husband were both bikers, and so there's that. I was attracted to
the
that
biker
still.
thing, yeah.
I still had long hair, and I had some tattoos, and I was starting to kind of live that lifestyle. And but then later, the more I talked to her, I found out that her and her husband, they were both Christians too. And so of course that light goes on, and I start talking to her, and eventually, she's praying with me and stuff. And so her and her husband, they invited me to church one night, and so I went. It was on a Wednesday night. And, we're sitting there, and the pastor, he breaks everybody up into smaller groups. And so they're just, everybody, they wanted to have a prayer night where you could pray for, the president and, your mayors and the different leaders of the country and stuff. And so I'm like sitting there, I'm like, what in the world am I doing here? This is lame. And,
I hate it when they break into those groups, man. It's like, oh, now I got to get real.
Yeah. And I didn't say a word
to
anybody.
You can't hide, man.
And so after that, we all sat down, and the pastor started talking, and it's almost like the floodgates inside of me just opened up, and I still don't know. I mean, it's God, obviously.
Yeah.
He did it, but, all this emotion and these feelings from my past just all of a sudden started to surface, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't shut it off. And it's like all the pain, the anger, the shame, everything that I had ever felt, it just seemed like it just started to surface. And so, I started getting ready to start crying, which I never cried. I was very unemotional. And so I just, it shocked me. And so I just got up, and I was heading for the door. And my friend Peggy, she stopped me. She's like, Paul, where are you going? And I just turned around, and I just started bawling like a baby. And I couldn't quit. And so she called, her and her husband, they called the pastor over. And I just told him everything. I was like, all the drugs I had used, about shooting and killing Bethany.
Yeah.
Just everything. And I expected him to spit in my face pretty much and walk away.
Sure.
But he didn't. He stayed right there, and he looked at me. He was like, Paul, have you ever accepted Jesus into your heart? And I was desperate. I knew I hit rock bottom, and I had nowhere else to go. Nothing else. I couldn't do anything.
Now let me pause you for a second. You grew up in a Christian home.
Yes.
So what I hear you saying is you had the head knowledge.
Yes.
But it hadn't moved to your heart yet.
Oh, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, and so I ended up giving my life to Christ that night, and I left that church that night knowing something was different inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
My problems were still there.
Right.
Me and my wife, we were having issues at the time, so that was still there. But something inside of me was different, and I didn't quite know what it was or how to put my finger on it. And eventually, I say probably about 3 or 4 months after that, my wife gave her life to Christ, and so we started going to Bible studies and stuff, learning about God, and learning how to talk to Him, how to pray, and stuff. And but even in the midst of that, we're still struggling in our marriage, and it's right before our second anniversary, and I decided that I wanted out. I was done, and so I picked up and got all my stuff, and I moved out of the house, and 3 hours away back to my home to Gunnison.
No children yet at this point?
No kids.
Right.
And so once I moved back home, I got a job, started working and stuff. My wife, she tried everything to get me to come back. So I want to say, I'd say 90% of it was me, not wanting to be married, not wanting, and so Yeah, I started drinking again. I didn't start getting high or anything anymore, but I started drinking again. And I ran into an old friend of mine, and he was a youth leader, and so he would, he'd play guitar and stuff, and he'd lead worship. And
Paul, you just can't run away from God.
No, no. I mean, he's made sure of that.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, through that, I started going to some of their groups. God put this desire for my wife again inside of me, which started growing. Mm-hmm. And so I had to fight to get her back. And, eventually, we were separated for about 4 months. And so we got back together and stuff. And then we've been married now. We just passed 18 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
We've been married. Thank you.
So you moved back.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere along the line, you decided you wanted kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's 12 now, so we were married for about 6 years before we had him.
Right.
But yeah.
So he so the listeners know he's sitting on the other side of the audio booth.
Yes.
And because of the weather right now, it's a little warm, so we have the audio booth windows open. So he's hearing your story.
Yeah.
This isn't the first time.
No.
Right?
Mm-mm.
How does that work? I mean, because a 12-year-old's thought process and his dad. I mean, we don't have time to go into it now, but I mean, I know how my kids reacted to my alcoholic escapades.
Yeah.
How does that work with you and him?
Actually, I mean, much better than I thought.
Yeah.
And I really, credit God for that. I believe that God prepared him to hear it. And it was, I'd say about 2 or 3 months ago was when I first told him.
Mm-hmm.
And he just, I mean, he's a thinker like I am. He
processes. Yeah.
And, I just, really pointing out too that, about forgiveness. And that's what, Jesus came to this earth and died for, was, for forgiveness,
right.
to pay the price for our sins.
Right.
And so he's, he didn't really have a lot of questions or anything, and he just processed it, and, he was good.
Yeah. And there hasn't been an issue.
No, not at all.
Yeah. See, that's God's grace.
Yes.
That's amazing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why Paul Holway Ministries?
I really have a heart to reach out to people.
Mm-hmm.
I know, looking back on my life, I see all the people that God used, to bring me to where I am today. And, I completely, God uses people.
Yeah.
And, actually, Monday I went to orientation to volunteer at the youth detention center in Salem. And so I'm going to be going there and talking with the kids and stuff. And so to me that's kind of in a sense that's my way of giving back.
Right.
And if I can make a difference in one kid's life, I mean it's completely worth it.
Yeah.
I know how big of a deal it was when I was locked up for people to come in.
Yeah.
So I'm hopefully they'll go in and lead worship and stuff. And,
right.
Do all that. But.
So the total amount of time served for the crime you committed, which was homicide.
Yes.
Was how long?
It was 5 years.
5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people listening right now that don't think that's long enough.
Yeah.
You've heard it before. How do you maneuver through that? Emotionally.
For a long time, I would accept what people said about me, even though I was saved.
Yeah.
I believed that God forgave me for everything except taking Bethany's life.
That was hard for you to receive that forgiveness.
Oh,
for
for
that
sure.
act? Yeah.
Yes. And it was up 2 years ago, so 25 years I carried that with me, and I guess I try to look through their eyes, and especially non-believers that may not understand the grace of what Jesus did.
Sure. But Christians can be cruel.
Yeah, Christians can.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know that.
Yeah.
They can be anything but Christ-like.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Woo!
And I think a lot of that too. I God's kind of protected me from too.
Yeah.
Which I mean I've heard it all.
Yeah, I bet you have.
But
yeah.
But on the same token, I believe that He's really protected me from a lot of that too.
Right.
Because whenever I go out and speak and share my testimony, I'd say 9 out of 10 people, the Holy Spirit spoke through me and spoke to directly to their heart.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I share it.
So bottom line, you participated in a horrific event.
Yes.
By what was outlined by the law of the land at that time, you paid for that horrific event.
Yes.
So you paid the penalty.
Yes.
We always know that there's a bigger penalty than even that, and that's walking through the emotionalism of it all and the reconciliation with family and dealing with people and all that kind of thing. But by law, by the letter of the law, you paid for that thing.
Yes.
And you sought forgiveness. And Jesus came into your life and something miraculous happened. And now, as a result of that, you're giving back.
Yes.
You're not just going about your life, bebopping along and making tons of money,
No.
because you're so smart or something like that, but you're giving back. And one of the ways you're giving back is through your website, through Paul Holway Ministries. And primarily, you give your testimony, right? You go and you share your story with people.
Yes.
So they can be impacted for the cause of our Savior.
Yes.
Yeah. And have you ever experienced anybody come up to you that was a naysayer, after you gave your testimony? Or has everybody been pretty warm?
Yeah, everybody's been pretty warm.
Yeah.
Nobody's directly come against me.
Yeah.
At those times.
Yeah. That could still happen.
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
in a way, in the back of my head, I expect it.
Yeah.
But so far, it hasn't.
But now, as of 2 years ago, you've been able to lay that at the cross.
Yes.
And live in freedom because of God's forgiveness.
Oh, for sure.
And so if that does happen, you're going to be a lot more prepared for it.
Yeah.
Than you would have been 8 years ago, for instance.
Yeah.
So tell us about your ministry. Tell about the website and what people will find there if they go there.
I'm pretty much going to find a little bit of my story. On the very first page, I've got the salvation prayer, and that to me that's the number one priority is people joining with Christ and having a relationship with Him and inviting Him to live in their hearts.
Right.
That's the only reason I'm doing this. And, I just, I've got a blog every now and then, which I haven't done in a couple months, but, when God gives me something to write about, I like to just kind of share my thoughts. I'll, whatever the Bible verse is that I, I'll put on the top and write a little blog on it. And
so people can have you come and speak, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and is there a place to fill that out?
Yeah, there's
on
a
the
link
website.
there.
Okay, so folks, if you would like Paul to come and share his testimony at your gathering, at your function, go to Paul Holway Ministries, HOLWAY Ministries.com, and fill out the form there, and you'll get back in touch with them.
Yes, and I'm also on Facebook.
And you're on Facebook too. What's your website on Facebook?
The same thing. It's facebook.com/Paul Holway Ministries.
Okay, and Paul's one of our friends on our Facebook page too. All right, Paul. So I said earlier, why I can sit across from you and not have any judgmental attitude towards you. Here's the deal. We pigeonhole sin. We say, well, this one is worse than this one, and this one, and we, of course, we talk about sin of sexual immorality is the one that you do against yourself. So there may be kind of a separate category for that as far as self-harm goes. But in God's eyes, when we go against His principles, and it's not because He's trying to ruin our fun.
No.
But we step out from under a protective covering. True?
True. Yes.
And when we put our big toe out there, it gets beat up. And it doesn't really seem to matter what it is, whether I shoplift. And this is what's really hard for a lot of people to get. But if I go into the grocery store and I put, a Reese's peanut butter cup in my pocket and walk out without paying it, that is just as much as a violation against God's ordinances in my life as if I take an innocent life.
Yeah.
Now that's a really hard thing to swallow.
Oh, it
but
is.
That is biblical truth.
Yes.
So, And the reason I think it is because God is trying to tell us that whether it's somebody who has taken his sister's life, whether it's somebody that is abusing, the family pet, whether it's somebody who's, lying to get ahead in business, whether it's somebody who's stretching the truth, trying to get the affections of a possible girlfriend. I mean, whatever. That when we do these things, we are on an equal playing field.
Yeah.
And so it is not by works that we are saved. It's not by works that we are healed. It's not by works that we're reconciled. It's by the grace of God.
Yes.
And that grace is open to everyone.
Everyone. Yeah.
Everyone. No matter what you've done, what you're doing, or what you may do in the future.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
It's kind of like, what is it about it is finished that people don't understand?
Yep.
So my sins, past, present, and even the ones I haven't committed yet, are already covered. Now, some people would say, well, that's not taking responsibility. Oh, no, it is. It's accepting the free gift of salvation that God offers, because we can't not misbehave.
No.
Left to our own devices, we can't. And I talk to people all the time. I say, they say, I just want to stay sober. I go, what if you can't? What if you can't put the needle down?
Yeah.
What if you can't stop the affair? What if you can't? Because the truth is, you can't.
Yeah.
Not without, there being a mediator. Not without, the book Alcoholics Anonymous, it talks about God does for us what we cannot do for ourselves. And our recovery from whatever it is is not dependent on other people. It's dependent on our relationship with God.
Oh, for sure.
And so I could sit here and point a finger at you and say, "Oh my gosh, this was a little girl," and blah blah blah, and that might be true. But we're on a level playing field because I am not righteous. No one is righteous. Not one person is righteous by their behavior.
Yep.
That's a hard pill for people to swallow, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sin is sin in God's eyes.
Sin is sin.
It just takes different forms.
Right.
But
so you've gone through the process, you've paid your dues, you've repented, you've moved on, and you're still going to get flack sooner or later.
Oh,
if you haven't recently.
Oh, definitely.
But you keep moving forward.
Yes.
You talk. Look at the people. Look at the heroes, the patriarchs in the Bible. They were awful.
Yeah, and Paul, my namesake.
Paul, your namesake.
Yeah.
And he thought he was doing God's will.
Yeah.
He was slaughtering Christians and killing babies and doing all sorts of weird stuff.
Yeah.
Look at Samson. He was a womanizer.
Yeah.
So was David, King David.
Yep.
Abraham thought, well, I know better than God. I'm just going to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
The list could go on and on and on. And yet God, in spite of our character defects, stands in and says, you know what? Because of what my son did on the cross, I see no spot or wrinkle in you.
Yes.
You are covered.
Yep. I think it's what Psalm 103, verse 12, I believe.
Okay.
It says he removes our sin as far as the east is from the west.
Yeah.
So it's gone. I mean, you can't get any farther than that.
To remember them against us no more.
Yeah.
Some people say, well, he forgets them. It actually says to remember them against us no more. So here's the deal. Even in the midst of knowing what we've done, he doesn't hold it against us.
Yeah. It's been paid for.
We are enemies of God.
Yeah.
And as enemies of God, he accepts us. That just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't anybody want that?
Yeah.
Do you scratch your head sometimes and go,
oh, definitely.
Why would I have to bow 3 times to Mecca 3 days a week and do everything perfectly? And geez, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So Paul, any last words for the listeners? What would you tell them for people that are sitting? Maybe there's some people listening right now that've got a secret. Maybe they've done something and they're trying to hide it, and they don't know where to go.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Obviously God, is kind of the easy answer.
Yeah.
For me, what God used to bring freedom to me was actually a class called Freedom Ministries. And it's done through, I can't remember the name of the church, It's out of Texas. You can just type in Freedom Ministries, a Gateway Church. And they've got, that's all, YouTube videos, so you can watch the videos. But it teaches you and hopefully opens your eyes to show you who you are in Christ. And so, so once you get to that point where you can accept Jesus into your heart, and even though, I was a Christian for several years before I was able to give that up.
Right.
And, so, it really helps you identify who you are in Christ. The enemy is always going to tell you those, give you those lies, like, you can never be forgiven. What you've done is too bad. And shame is a huge tool that he uses.
Oh, big time.
And that keeps you silent. And he did that very heavily on me when I started sharing my testimony, was, piling shame on me to try to keep me silent. And, and so, just to, and finding somebody, a mentor, somebody that you can talk to that can help walk you through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to talk to somebody.
Right. So you haven't just been restored to sobriety, you've been restored to sanity.
Yes.
Because anybody can put down a bottle for a day, but can you be restored to sanity? That's the main goal of even the secular 12-step recovery process. Being restored to sanity, allowing God to move in and do for you what you can't do for yourselves.
Yeah.
We edge God out a lot with our egos, and we do it as believers, and we do it as 12-steppers, and we do it as recovery mentor, and we all have this stuff that we do, but God is always there quick to say, hey, man, I haven't gone anywhere.
Yep.
I'm right here.
He's always been there.
Yeah. So what are your plans, man? What do you plan on doing going forward?
Well, you got
a book.
I've written a book.
Yeah.
And the title is called Life After, and so my book, it's my whole story. I go into real heavy detail, especially on the day, that I had shot Bethany.
Wow.
I want people to see and almost feel what I felt, and kind of see through my eyes, so that they can realize how far God reached to save me, and how far He's willing to reach to save anybody listening. And so my book, we're shooting for middle of September or so for the publishing.
Let us know, please.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, we'll help promote it here on the station. I'd love to do that and get a signed copy from you.
Oh, for sure.
So the book's coming out soon. Life After.
Yes, Life After.
And it'll be up on your website, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
And so one of the last things I'd like to ask you is, what do you do? Do you have a ritual or a practice or something you do to kind of honor your sister? Is there? Talk to her? Do you visit her memorial site? What do you do?
I really don't. She's buried in Colorado, so obviously I live,
right. You
live
can't
in
just
Oregon,
fly there
so
once a week, right?
Yeah. To me, like going to the youth detention place, doing stuff like that, giving back to the community, to me is honoring to her.
Good answer.
I just, I fully believe that if I chose to do nothing, that her death would have been for nothing. And if through her death, such a horrible tragedy that it was, if just one person comes to Christ through that, then, God's done His work. That's
right. Well, Paul, keep on doing it, man.
Amen.
Keep on doing it. Let us know when that book comes out. Paul Holway has been my guest. PaulHolwayMinistries.com. You can visit him on Facebook as well as go directly to the website. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you for having me today.
All right. And it's a good deal. And your son's been so patient.
Yes.
in the waiting room out there. All right. Folks, until our next broadcast, this is the Monty'man along with Paul Holway, and we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty.